Welcome to No Bills Fan Podcast. If you don't already, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, anywhere you find your podcast. Don't forget, NumbBillsFan.com has all of our content. Welcome to Numb Bills Fan Podcast, or podcast number 129. I'm your host, David Palermo, and on the line with me is Kevin Massare, but we will get to him in 1 minute. Don't mean to tease you, Kevin. Real quick, don't forget Grandstand Sports Network, part of them. Check them out, grandstandsportsnetwork.com. Shoot them a follow on Twitter, grandstands_SN, and on Instagram, Grandstand Sports. Also, follow all the other Locked On podcasts. There's many brands on there. Cover One is now transferred over to Locked On Bills. Big announcement. We'll get into it with Kevin in a second. But again, I've been on the sidelines, and so has Kevin, and so have a couple other people for Grandstand Sports Network. Please make sure you check that out. Also, don't forget puntdrunksports.com. I always talk about it. Great podcast at Punt Drunk. We cover the Bills for the for the Punt Drunk Sports Comedy Podcast Network. So comedians who cover a sports team. I'm the one, David Palermo, your host for the Bills. So Numb Bills Fan is that one. And also NumbBillsFan.com. If you want to support the show, there's an Etsy link. I got some shirts up there. Whatever you want to do goes back into like website costs and stuff. Nonetheless, on the line with us, just had training camp, day 11. I was up on the sidelines. It was Anquan Boldin's first day. Was really stoked to see what he could do, and damn, I was impressed. But on the line with us is Kevin Massare. What's up, Kevin?
What's going on, Dave? How you guys doing today?
Well, me alone, and my dogs are outside, and I'm got the window open, looking at nature, making sure they don't run away because they might eat people. So, just pretty stoked on Anquan Boldin today. I think he showed up. He looks like a goddamn, like, he has like tight end muscles. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at it, Anquan Boldin plays a very similar role to a tight end, especially now in his career where he's from the slot. He goes through the middle of the field often, and he's a catches machine. Always has been, and he's not afraid to get hit and popped by linebackers and by safeties. So I think he plays as like a tight end too in your system as well as a wide receiver 3. You get a lot of versatility there, and yeah, absolutely. So he's going to show up a little bit bigger, more of a tight end. He's not going to run your 4.3 speed like a Sammy Watkins, but he's going to give you catches, and he's going to be open. Just with his, just savvy route running, kind of like a Stevie Johnson, but more polished. So, really good addition to the team, especially that's lacking a tight end too.
I'll say he is a professional. To me, to my naked amateur eye, I don't know crap. But to me, he looked money. He looked on. I was not disappointed at all in what I saw from Mr. Boldin. And I'll say, too, an interesting setup. You had Sammy Watkins on the outside on the left, Boldin in the slot to the left. And then I believe you had O'Leary on the right. I'm not sure if his hand was in the ground or not, just because I was on the other side of the field from that. But then you had Charles Clay split out wide on the right, and it's like, oh, okay, this is sweet, so like, I'm really stoked to it just felt like being out there was another gear that the Bills hit today. It just felt like, oh damn, I heard Sammy Boldin out there, 81-14, let's go. So I'm like, oh shoot. So I got my phone out after tweeting something really quick. So I hit World Star Cams. I kept it upright. Posted a 7-on-7 video of Anquan Boldin, first rep with Tyrod Taylor, as far as I know. First rep, thrown over the middle, into the secondary, and dude would have been in for a touchdown, ran it all the way. Granted, I don't know if he would have got popped. I'm not sure, but posted that video up on Reddit, and I got shredded, which is hilarious because I posted World Star Cam. So hopefully you get the joke, the sarcasm. Already hating myself for not having landscape view. Let's just roll with it here. But, yeah, so it was nice to see that connection right out the gate. And I got really excited because you're seeing 81-14. Like, damn. Like, this is really happening. You got a guy that is a possession machine I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what were you hoping to hear?
Well, let me get in on Boldin here, as we've said over on our podcast, Locked On Bills now. What is really interesting to me is Anquan Boldin's ability to get open across the middle, which is something that Tyrod's taken heat from, pretty much from the beginning of his days of starting under Rex Ryan and Greg Roman and Anthony Lynn, where his ability to not find those open middle field receivers like Charles Clay. Now with Charles Clay and Anquan Boldin, it gives him another look across the middle to help him find a receiver in the areas that he's struggling. That can only, as Nate Geary alluded to on our podcast, it only gives him less excuses as a quarterback now that he has another weapon. And look, I think the roster offensively, I'll speak offensively, is as strong as I've seen since my younger days of covering the team, just loosely. Between the offensive line, which I think is strong, the wide receiver rep weapons, the tight end options, as well as your top 5 running back, and an above-average quarterback. I really look at it as a really strong, built like a Kansas City Chiefs team, a really very strong 10-6 roster. And all of us have said before, it could be the year, but really within the next season or two, it really is the year with this type of roster that is built on the offensive side of the ball.
Let me piggyback off that. You want to know something funny? I feel if Tyrod Taylor today proved to me, if Tyrod Taylor can trust that the dude is going to be in the right spot, he's going to get the rock to him. That's right. I think if you pop on the damn game tape, that is the damn truth. And if you listen to Tyrod Taylor talk, if you caught my Periscope, Numb Bills fan on the Twitter, I'm sure Grandstand Sports Network retweeted it as well. Tyrod Taylor talks about being in the West Coast offense like you guys did on yesterday's podcast for Locked On Bills / Right Now Cover One podcast if you're looking for it. You, Nate, and excuse me, and Eric were talking about it. It's in the feet. You know what I mean? And Tyrod Taylor echoed that same sentiment today at his press conference. Like, you could be in the right spot, but you feel that the guy's open, but you're still wrong. You should have caught that a lot earlier and paid attention to everything is timing. And I think the more you can rein in Tyrod Taylor and get things systematically down, that takes away a lot of thinking. And I think a lot of people, they worry that, okay, well, Nate was bringing up, he's not an anticipatory thrower. Anticipatory. Did I even say that right?
Yeah.
Yes. I look at it like, I agree with Nate, but very rarely do we actually have an opportunity to be patient. And with this Bills organization, you got Lorenzo Alexander now. You have Kyle Williams still in the fold. You got vets, man. Now you got Boldin. You got a guy who's going to be in the right spot. Let's give Tyrod Taylor the chance. But I agree with you guys in your podcast, 110%. There's no excuses for weapons. That said, I think if Tyrod Taylor trusts the dude, he's getting him the rock. That's not an issue.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, I like Tyrod more than most. I think he has a nice savviness. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low, which kind of in that sense reminds me of like an Aaron Rodgers on the mindset front. So I think those are all things that work in his favor. The guys like him, he was pretty much that's tiebreaker in being able to get a guy like Boldin. Tyrod's ability alone and potential of maybe a winning season is what got Anquan to sign here out of Florida, out of a retirement situation. So if you look at all those things, Tyrod's a good recruiter. He was actually also close to Jeremy Maclin as well as Shady McCoy. So there's a lot to be said about a guy that you want to play for rather than a pompous statue type of quarterback that comes in with no personality that no one wants to play for, who we've had in the past that have quarterbacked this team. So I really look at Tyrod as an above-average quarterback. I look at him in the top 15 in the league. I look at him as an ability 10 to 15 range in ranking, the ability to go to the playoffs with the right team. Last year, it wasn't necessarily, he did have some bad moments, but it wasn't necessarily his fault. The reason, we didn't get to where we wanted to be. The defense was porous. With our points per game scored in the top 10, we should have made the playoffs on an offensive side of the ball. Our defense was awful. And I think that those are corrected now back to the 4-3 scheme, more similar to a Jim Schwartz defense in a 4-3. We will run a little wide 9 like he had. And our linebackers are in good shape. Look, everyone's giving heat to Reggie Ragland for kind of falling to the third team, but I think it's more he needs the reps. I don't think he'll be on the third team long. There's been players in the past that have dropped that far. Dolphus Washington did. You look at guys like, in the past at least, Robert Woods was taking third team reps last year or 2 years ago whenever Rex Ryan first came in. So I do think there's, at this point in camp, it's not even the first preseason game. You can't go based on where his reps are getting. I think that's more to give Gerald Hodges some backup middle linebacker reps. And I do think you see Reggie Ragland switch to the strong side sooner rather than later to take reps away from Lorenzo because he can't play forever. So
I don't know, man. Lorenzo looks very spry out there. In his mind, it's like, dude, he had this play today where the Tyrod Taylor was doing some kind of rollout play action thing that they've been doing. Yep. And Lorenzo Alexander is literally just standing there. Just like, dude. And then Darius is there and Kyle's there. Like, it was just, they sniffed it out. The Bills defense is, the defensive line, they're really smart. And if you look at Lorenzo Alexander, I can't imagine him being 300 pounds. I got to shake the dude's hand last week. And, man, I can't believe
I'm
how.
with you, Dave. I think Lorenzo's great, man. I think he's develops like late in his career to be a very good player and a very good veteran and a really good guy with the community. Almost like an Anquan Boldin of the defense, to where he's going to be there. He's going to put in the work. He's going to be one of your stalwarts on the defense, as well as still get some special teams time. You can't say enough for the guy.
I just like that we don't got to rush into Ragland, is what I'm trying to say. Agree with you. We don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to have Zoe there in shape, ready to go, and we can slowly let Ragland acclimate himself to a new defense. I asked him last week, are you picking up this defense faster than the last defense? Like, no, it's a whole new defense for me. And I thought, being a 4-3, I thought maybe his linebacker responsibilities would be a lot simpler. But he's never played in a 4-3 since high school. So we went over that on our last podcast together. So if anybody wants that conversation, a couple podcasts back. But as far as I want to get back to Tyrod,
sure.
Tyrod, we've gone over his faults, obviously. But what I like about this is I'm seeing backup quarterbacks hitting these guys in between zones, and that lets me know, okay, well, if Tyrod Taylor does fail, I think these guys are smart enough. Like, Peterman looks good. I think he looks nice. I even see T.J. Yates connecting with Streeter a lot. These guys aren't scrubs, man. Maybe it's just camp, but I have not seen quarterbacks this consistent in a while. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm a homer. Maybe my eyes aren't open. There could be people who are reporters, people on the team, within the team, that maybe think I'm just the biggest homer ever. But I don't think it's bad. I was kind of a little worried about Tyrod for a second.
Dave, you can go anywhere for negative coverage. And, a lot of us here on our network don't present a lot of negative angles because you can read that other places. We have a specific guy at camp every year that's basically going to give you the negative things going on. So I'm going to give you the positive things going on. I'm
honestly going to go objective. I don't even want to say positive. I want to say objective. Because I don't want to pull bullshit over people's eyes either, But I will say it's we've been looking for Tyrod Taylor to throw over the middle. Well, he got a nice ball over to Clay and 11-on-11s over the middle. He got one to, I take that back, though, 7-on-7. But because I can't film 11-on-11. I did get that one on film on 7-on-7.
And Dave, I'll give you an objective take too. And I don't like to present players, and there's a couple players on our roster who get significant time that I don't like. I think we need to upgrade punter. But anyways, if you look at
by the way, I had a thought about the punter. One thing I did notice is, how do you upgrade the punter if Colton Schmidt is the regular holder most of the damn time? I don't think that punter is getting supplanted. I really don't, man.
You got to remember that Austin Rico, I believe I just read is how you say it. I don't know if that's true or not, but Austin Rico, the backup punter, kicker, and kickoff guy, is going to learn how to hold the ball. He's going to learn how to hold the ball for a Super Bowl champion within a week of a preseason game. I don't know, man. That's crazy. That was the one tell I had was sorry to cut you off, but the one tell I had was wait a second. If Colton Schmidt is holding the ball regularly, and we got to get a guy some reps to hold the damn ball, it's and nothing against his ability to hold the ball. A, you don't know how good of a holder he really is because it's hard to tell unless he botches it. But B, I will say, how do you know he was good? Dan Carpenter shanking extra points, missing kicks. How does that say one way or another whether he's a good holder or not? If you look at it,
Okay.
it's not always, being a former punter kicker myself, it's not always about, the outcome of the kick. There's about 3 or 4 factors, and the offensive line even plays a role in this, to missing a kick. And you don't know that the holding situation's good. I'll say one thing straight up. You give me a year to learn how to hold the football, I'll be able to do it for an NFL team. I think it's the easiest thing on the field to do. So I do think that shouldn't win him the job if he is a good holder. But anyways, transitioning to the offense.
Can we just hire Mormon to be a holder?
He could. Sure, we'd waste a roster spot. That's the biggest problem with it.
It's not a waste.
Maybe.
Yo,
I don't know.
Mike Tolbert was calling Hauschka. Come on, house money. Come on. It was so funny.
That's awesome. But another guy I don't think that has played very well is Andre Holmes. I think for his opportunities that he's received, and he's a very good special teams guy, and I won't take that away from him, which will probably earn him a spot on the roster.
Right.
But Dave, let me give you an opinion on why he won't make the team. A, you signed Anquan Boldin. B, you have younger players behind the team like Zay Jones and Dakeil Shorts. But I'll give you an even better reason, because you can have a guy like Philly Brown do about the same amount of work as Andre Holmes, costs a little bit less, which is great, but not play a role in the compensation formula, which Bean has admitted to thinking about. So if you think about it from that way, cutting Andre Holmes at some point before the first week, and I read all the way up to week 10, but I don't know if this is true, he would actually not count for the compensation formula, meaning, Dave, that the third round pick that we lost from Gilmore could be back in play. So is Andre Holmes and Ryan Davis worth keeping over a third round pick? No. So I do think you need to think about the future a little bit and what you're gaining with those two players, especially with a guy like Philly Brown and Anquan Boldin behind Andre Holmes, and a guy like Eddie Yarbrough, who's played really well behind Ryan Davis.
I think I think Andre Holmes has been honestly disappointing.
I agree, and I didn't like him off the bat because I won't get off the fact that he was in a pass-happy offense. He couldn't see the field with 2 good receivers, which should help you. Oakland runs 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, so don't give me the excuse that he had better players in front of him. He did. However, he should only be more open from that.
Here's the only problem.
He fell behind Seth Roberts. So to me, look, I don't think Andre Holmes presents anything at this stage in his career. I think he's a great gunner, so I will give him the special teams credit, but I haven't seen anything from a receiving side of things. I
mean, for a cap hit, $1.4 million. I mean, it's okay. It ain't awful.
It's not terrible,
but
Dave,
if you cut him,
Brown for half.
Like, does the dead cap come in no matter what? If you cut him,
it depends on his contract. I'd have to look at his contract. Because I'm
on SpotTrack.com, and
what does it say?
His dead cap is $2.45 million. So I mean,
okay,
so that's a lot of money, and it says yearly cash is 2.5. So and the signing bonus is $550. Work out of 50. Base salary.
If you hover over it, what does it say for post June 1 cap?
Says post. It says pre 6-1. Okay, so post 6-1 release, dead cap will be 1.35.
Okay, so he'd basically be free to keep. So that is working in his favor. But remember again, it isn't necessarily over the money. Because it is a cap hit, but you wouldn't be spending actual cash, which is important. But B, it is playing a role in that compensation formula to where if he's the last player that matters to get you a third-round draft choice, a top 100 pick, you're probably going to go ahead and cut the guy unless he's played well. So all I'm saying is to couple the conversation about targets and Tyrod Taylor, I don't see – he's the current number 2 receiver, and I have not seen number 2 receiver ability out of him yet. I've seen maybe 5th and 6th receiver ability, but I have not seen that number 2 receiving ability that he should be playing in front of Boldin and Zay Jones, which – in the next 2 weeks, I do believe he'll immediately go down to like the 4th or 5th guy. And then you have Rod Streeter and Philly Brown. I don't know, man.
Dude, I was just going to tell you, man, Rod Streeter, man. Rod Streeter, okay? There is no dead cap if you cut him. If Rod Streeter can play special teams and can be catching that rock on a consistent damn basis, and he catches everything thrown to him, I will guarantee you he is worth the cut, Andre Holmes, to keep him. That could be, you know what I mean? Because... man, during the season, it's like, this is why I don't do message boards, is right here. I can't keep having the same damn conversation about stuff until we get to training camp. Like, the offseason is so hard to talk about shorts football because on paper, every year I fall into these guys over measurables. Man, how they not have this? And it's like, I don't know. I don't get it. And you really have to perform under pressure in front of coaches, fans, everybody in the likes. And it's like, man, just, you hear things when you're on the sidelines. You hear coaches yelling at certain players and stuff. I will never repeat what's going on, but it's like you hear things and you wish these people the best because you hear the certain tone.
Right.
And it's like, damn, dude, like, I don't know. To be honest with you, I think they've been waiting. Kevin. Like, hey, sit home. Here's the playbook. Here, you know what's going on, because Boldin came in. He did not look out of place one iota. This Bills team, one thing I'm noticing is camp usually for me is, oh, well, we're going to take our time a little bit. We're going to, we're just breaking in the playbook, going to do some more install. No. These guys look like they're firing all cylinders. Now, maybe I'm just nuts and not really optimistic, and they got me thinking that way. But if you want to go down the conspiracy theory alley, hey, open competition. We got Anquan Boldin on the line. That means you guys need to step the fuck up, right? So what happens? Well, you pretty much had a pile of muck at the receiver position where, as Chris Brown said, is from BuffaloBills.com, Chris Brown, he goes, you can pretty much take a pile of sticks and throw them up in the air and pick them up. You don't know what that's going to offer. So now Boldin is there, first day at camp, taking reps with the ones. Okay, we obviously know what the deal is, so now let's figure out the depth chart behind him. And if you got to cut a guy and have that eat you $1.5 million on the cap to $2.5 million on the cap, that's probably what you're doing.
Right. And the compensation. If you think about it, and it's funny that everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't care about the compensation formula, but Green Bay and New England play the compensation formula, and they're in the divisional playoff game every year. So I think you need to think about it. I think if you're going to inherit a free third-round pick in a team that could use, they have 2 firsts next year.
Now, how does that work again? Can you break that down one more time?
Sure, and compensation formula is something I've followed since we've lost guys like Woods and Gilmore. But here's how the compensation formula looks. Anyone that makes over veteran minimum, so if you're a veteran minimum guy, you don't count. And anyone that was signed prior to June 1st was either June 1st or an arbitrary day in May. So anyone signed now, like Boldin, doesn't count. So it was anyone signed previous to camp and previous to like mandatory OTAs. So qualifying players, so however many qualifying players you lost, call it 5. I think the Bills lost about, I think it was 4 or 5.
The Bills are really bad at this game. Let's just set it out there. They're the fucking worst team at the conference. I'm like, how do you lose this guy, and you're telling me we lose Gilmore, we're not getting anybody? Like, what the?
Well, here's why, Dave, because it's about, you can't just go and lose players and then go recoup it by signing players. So what the Bills end up doing every year, a guy like Patrick DeMarco counts against the formula because you gave him over veteran minimum, and he's going to cancel out one of the guys you lost. So when you're losing 2, it's not about money value until you have
only veteran minimum. Over veteran minimum, then everything's axed, huh?
Correct. So if you count everything over vet minimum, which we end up getting away with, like Hodges was a vet minimum, Streeter, Philly Brown, those were all vet minimum deals. However, anyone over vet minimum,
I think Streeter's below. I think I just saw 775 for the whole year. Come on, man, that kid is a bang for the buck.
Yeah, he's a vet minimum guy. Now, if you, here's the thing to think about for all the listeners. It's so if you do have a loss of players, let's say you lost 5 qualifying guys and you only gained 4, you have a loss of 1 player, which you're going to get a pick for. Now, what pick that is based on the dollar amount. So that's where the dollars matter. So that's why you need to cut 3 guys, most namely Ryan Davis, Andre Holmes, and Vlad Ducasse, that you can bring back in week 1 or 2 and not have them count against the compensation formula. New England's been doing it for 15 years where they'll cut a guy right at the cuts and tell them basically, hey, we're bringing you back week 2 because it doesn't count for the formula. And your salary's not guaranteed any longer if you're not on the week 1 roster. So that's the big thing to remember with a guy like Streeter. Although he's an $800,000 player, his whole contract is guaranteed the second he makes the week 1 roster, meaning you can't ever cut him that season because you're going to pay him the full amount anyway. So you can't, which isn't true for non-vets, like guys like Da'Keil Shorts, guys that are making undrafted free agent money. You can move those guys around and not have a cap hit or a cash hit. So there's a lot to think about on the money end of things when you're putting together your 53-man roster, that a lot of times you're like, you know what, this player played better. However, that's on your 53rd man, you're not always thinking about, is he a little bit better? You're thinking about how much does he cost me? And at what point is the value overriding the player?
It makes sense. And I think with this new regime, it's new thinking, top to bottom. Brandon Beane's out there on the field. I mean, this guy's aware. He's I don't know. I hope they figure it out.
A stud young general manager.
I don't know. It's early yet, man. It's still early. I'm not going to crown this guy anything yet.
It's early, but he has the makings to be a stud general manager. And just due to the fact that Carolina was doing anything they could to keep him and would have kept him as their general manager had they fired their general manager earlier in the season. So I don't think you can say how good his personnel decisions are going to be yet, but as a moxie, as how he carries himself and how he is in general, which would have the makings of a solid general manager.
So one thing I wanted to bring up is Sean McDermott brought up between the fields crop rotation and as presser. And I'll be honest, I buy it. I believe him. But make no mistake. Is it a coincidence that a lot of that 11-on-11 is happening on that side field? Because my first thought about going to camp, when I first started actually paying attention really closely, I would notice that there was this one dude just right in the middle of the stands. He popped out a tripod with a damn decent quality camera on in Bills gear, and I'm thinking how hard is it to find somebody to do that and send a tape over to another team? Especially if you're Bill Belichick, you got the resources, and people think that's crazy. No, it's really not. It's really not. Somebody could send somebody else a damn email that covers a team. Hey, you want to make money? Yeah, sure. Let me know what's going on. Right?
Sure. Yep.
And it's I think on the side field it's great.
I don't know, like you're saying, I don't know that I buy the crop rotation. I do think that that's deliberate. So I guess I can leave it there.
Exactly. I think it's a lot, dude. You can't get a good angle on what the hell's going on the side. No. I can't really get a good perspective, man. It's like going to an NFL game versus going to a high school football game. You know what I'm saying? You're so far back in the stands, and I'm so up close. Excuse me, I got to look through players.
Are you done with camp, Dave, or do you have one?
No, I'm going back on Tuesday the 15th.
The last day. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have the other days, so I am there Friday, Sunday, Monday.
So Kevin Massare on Twitter, KevinMassare. Okay. So
I'll be there Friday, which is actually a closed practice, so I'll be able to be one of the only people that can bring you what's going on in that practice. So Friday, I'll be there the day after the game. I'm not sure how much will be going on, but there'll be some good interviews, so look out for that. Sunday, I'll be there as well, live podcasting from the WGR tent with Nate Geary, and Monday. And then Dave will be there Tuesday.
And real quick, I just want to go over with you, people might want to know who's starting, who's not, what's going on. But Sean McDermott pretty much said that the ones are going to go a quarter, maybe even more. So I'm excited to see the 2s and the 3s, and I get really excited right off the bat, and then I go to these games, and I'm like, shit, why am I here? But now, since I've been at...
I love being there till the end.
I love being there now. I'm more excited now because I've had access to see what's going on instead of just read speculation. You know what I mean? Right. And now I got to see it with my own eyes. In one tandem, I actually was walking with him back towards the locker room. Wes Saxton... How do you even pronounce his name right? Is it Sexton or Saxon? I'm sorry. Tight end.
Saxon?
Yeah. A tight end that Nate Peterman really likes. And I was like, man, number 2 likes you, huh? He goes, yeah, man. I go, I see that connection out there. He's like, yeah, dude, I hope we got it on Thursday. Because that's a guy that when you're talking about a 6'4", 235, South Alabama, a couple years in the league, I mean, he's a big man, dude, and Peterman has been looking for him, and anytime shit breaks down, boom, to the right side, you got him down for a check down or a swing, like whatever you want to call it.
Well, tight end's an interesting position too because if you what you should watch, Dave. You should watch. I'll give the listeners something to watch, some homework. You should watch All or Nothing about the Rams. Now, okay, it's the Rams. However, the series is so well made on Amazon, and our tight ends coach was the Rams offensive coordinator, and you get to see an inside look into him, and you get to see an inside look into his move to Buffalo at the end of the show, and kind of what he's working with now. So I would recommend checking that out. At least watching the 7th and 8th episode of the series, if not the whole thing, and get an inside look into the tight ends, because look. Everyone's a shoo-in for thinking we keep 3. With the way we run our offense, do not be surprised if a guy like Wes sneaks onto the team as the 4th tight end.
No, dude, not to cut you off, there's a lot of tight ends.
Yep.
There's a lot of tight ends, and they're all no smaller than 6'3". And guess who's 6'3"? Nick O'Leary and Charles Clay.
Right.
So, I mean, dude, Wes Saxon.
I don't think Nick O'Leary's a shoo-in to make the team. I do think
I think he is.
You think he is?
Yeah.
We'll see. I think Logan Thomas is, but I don't think it's a shoo-in that 3 players team. I think they keep 3 running backs, one being Mike Tolbert. I don't know that there's another guy that's worth rostering not on your practice
squad. Dude, I haven't put a depth chart together yet, but
I think it's 3 running backs, 4 with DeMarco. I think it's 4 there, and then you go 4 tight ends. That's currently how I have it projected, and either Kroom or Sexton are going to make the team as your 4th guy.
What about Tolbridge or Kroom? Who do you like between those two?
Well, Tolbridge was cut for Boldin.
I'm sorry, I did not get the updated depth chart, and it was actually in my notifications. Duh.
And Kroom does have a shot. Yeah, they like Kroom. I saw him mixing in with the ones at times. He has a big preseason. I think him versus West could be a real big battle for the last man on the roster. So. Plus, they both can play on kickoff return. So I think you have some ability there that you'll keep them over a guy like Cedric O'Neal at running back.
One guy that I keep noticing running around a lot is 22, Banyard. He seems to get yards.
Okay, well, a guy like him has a real uphill battle to make.
On the third team today, though, he just kept getting yards. It was weird.
Yeah,
it was just like the one day.
Rarely keeps just roster development. You rarely keep that player unless he's really good in preseason. You rarely keep that guy. You're hoping he lands on your practice squad.
So, I mean, if you're the Bills, I think you got to develop these receivers. I could really.
I agree with Da'Keil Shorts. I think that's why Andre Holmes could be facing a cut too.
I was just looking at that on my list when I said that.
Yep. Absolutely. Because if you keep a guy like him, you free up cap money, and you get the ability to develop him as you make him inactive anyways, and you develop him with Anquan Boldin and some of your other vets. And I do think that might present more value keeping him and Philly Brown over Andre Holmes and Jeremy Butler.
Very, very true. Trying to see what else I had on my notes. So today at the presser, Sean McDermott really made a lot of player comparisons, pretty much back to essentially how Boldin is brought in for leadership and how guys yada yada yada. Also the backup center position. He mentioned he comped to guys at Khalil, Peanut Tillman, or not Peanut Tillman. I'm sorry. He just made these connections of players in Carolina that came in and really.
Yeah, he mentioned Jericho Cotchery.
Yeah, and how awesome that is, and it could be all hot smoke, but I mean, well, let's call it how it is. I don't think the Ravens would have won the Super Bowl without Ray Lewis, and I really mean that because he's so smart. He's so like just in the pocket of the game of football. You know, he knows all the tricks. I mean, Anquan Boldin is going to show these guys how to work. And frankly, I think Anquan Boldin is the one that not only gets Zay Jones right out the gate to work like a pro, which I'm sure he's already been doing the best he can, but because he's got his receivers coach, so he's, I think, a notch above a regular rookie. So number 2, Anquan Boldin's the kind of guy where he could really sway. He could really sell Sammy Watkins on Buffalo. He could really be like, look, man, if you know the system and when you had a good year, you know the system. and they love you here, you're crazy if you don't at least sign for a couple years here. You know, so and that's exactly why, you know, we talk about the Bills not picking up their option, Watkins' option, which was, I believe Doug Whaley was still here for that. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option, which is okay because it offers them flexibility. But now you got Anquan Boldin in, and why? And what if Boldin balls out? Why wouldn't you sign him back again? You know what I mean? Maybe, maybe not. But it's like, if Sammy Watkins comes to fruition, make no mistake, I could see the Bills keeping Sammy Watkins. I really could. And you're going to have a decision with Tyrod, but
if Boldin's competitive and the team is competitive a little bit more than Detroit was last year, I think you could maybe see him playing a final year here if he's still producing. I don't think that's completely out of the question, but there'd have to be a lot of factors there.
Right, right. Also, I like that Sean McDermott puts a priority on the center position when asked about Groy. Because, I mean, we've seen it. No dig on certain other coaches because I probably like them. But, I mean, we saw what happened when we had other positions playing backup center. So, you know, like it wasn't too promising in the past. But there's one guy I wanted to ask you about. Eddie Yarborough. I can't even pronounce his name right. He's been making Eddie Yarborough defensive lineman.
Yes, yeah.
He's been getting first-team reps, man, from the third team.
That's what you need in camp, man. That's how you develop a roster. We haven't had enough of that lately, so a lot of fans and other media members don't think that that's really possible. But when you're developing guys that Mike Waffle, our defensive line coach, has also on the worth watching the Amazon show for. He basically verified and helped find Eddie Yarborough to be a guy to designate him as a backup defensive lineman, and has played well. I mean, he's going to make the team at this point, bearing a really bad preseason. But he's had a great camp, and if he's going to get to the quarterback in preseason, you're going to see him easily as the third guy, thus, again, making a guy like Ryan Davis, who's also hurt, expendable, and maybe looking for a fourth defensive end in cuts, and not playing into that compensation formula, as you've heard me talk about, for a top 100 pick. So Eddie Yarborough has been a nice surprise at a nice position group that we've needed. Front four is very strong. Having a guy like, Worthy, Adolphus Washington, and Eddie Yarborough playing pretty well can only help the case there.
Anything you want to know from me from camp? I think I'm pretty much good for this podcast.
Okay, great.
I mean, we talked about, I don't know. I feel like pretty updated on camp. Pretty stoked. I've had a good time being out there and representing Grandstand Sports Network.
And Dave, if you can, you're going to have to try to make it Sunday, because maybe we could pick up a podcast. I know you won't be on the field, but if you can make it Sunday, maybe you could get on with Nate and I at some point.
Yeah, where are you guys doing that?
Like right at the WGR tent next to the press conference
station. Like in it?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, you can plan on it. If it's like a certain time, I'll make sure I'm there.
If you can make it, I know you can't be on the field for the rest of practice, which is lame. But still the rules.
I wonder if we could shoot it. I wonder if we could shoot an email out. Actually, why am I talking about this out loud? Never mind. Okay, yeah, definitely. I'll make that happen. So, Kevin, tell us where you're from and what's on with the Cover One podcast, just to give it a refresh.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at Kevin Massare. You can find me on the Cover One podcast, now Locked On Bills. That's where we'll be, Nate Geary, Eric Turner, and I, as well as you can find me on Grandstand Sports Network doing a lot of different other things and live tweeting. And like I said earlier in the show, I'll be on the field Friday for the closed practice after the game. So we should have some good comments and injury recaps and things like that, as well as Sunday for a live show, as well as camp coverage. And then Monday you can catch me there, as Dave will pick up Tuesday. So that's what I'm working on.
Awesome. Well, that's been Kevin Massare from, obviously, Locked On Bills, cover1.net. And that's it for me. So thank you for listening. Don't forget punchdrunksports.com, numbillsfan.com, and also grandstandsportsnetwork.com. Follow everybody, and any support is greatly appreciated. And I'm your host, David Palermo. Take care.